I will admit that what Nick and I do here is pretty awesome. I mean, we get offered video games to play and to write and talk about. And the thing is, it's like such a weird hobby to have because, you know, as someone who plays a lot of video games, both of us, even if we weren't doing this, we'd be playing a lot of video games. But doing this kind of opens your horizon, and you're like, okay, now like I'm, you know, you play games that you might not have heard of before, and consequently, you'll find games that are like, oh, hidden gems. Like this is like, oh man, this is like hit me right at the perfect time. Or games that you're like, oh man, I don't want to finish this, but I have to because I'm playing it for review.
You're locked in.
Unfortunately, today I have a game of the latter. So, look, this is going to be a very honest review, but I'm going to try my best to kind of explain the game so that at the very least you understand what it is if you have interest in it. So, we're going to talk about Downward, which is it just came out in June 2024, and it is a first-person adventure game that's mainly based around parkour. The story essentially takes place in this post-apocalyptic Earth, I think is what it is. Yeah, I think it's a post-apocalyptic Earth, and you are on humanity's final adventure to find out why there was an apocalypse in the first place. And there's essentially, you know, I'm not going to get too into the kind of the story here. It took me about 3-4 hours to get through, but it has a story about the end of the world, and then there's different planets that kind of are involved. 3 planets total that kind of cause this event, whatever it is. And a handful of characters join you in this empty landscape of post-apocalyptic planet. Now, the big twist here is that as you start your adventure, there's a voice in your head, and the whole time this voice is kind of egging you on to kind of like, hey, like do this and do that. It's kind of guiding you, and the goal of the game, along with finding the answers, is to get to that voice and figure out who that voice is and kind of see them. That's all I'll say about the story. Other than that, it is generally just an open playground where you can parkour all over the place. It kind of plays sort of like a Mirror's Edge game, so you can jump, mantle onto things. Eventually, as you keep playing the game, you'll unlock some abilities, like essentially you'll see kind of these swirls in the air, and if you jump onto those, you kind of get a double jump out of it, or a triple jump if there's like another one in the way. There's also a tether that you get that kind of like slingshots you towards certain orbs, and it's one of those games where the open world has everything kind of set as it is, and so like even if you don't have the the slingshot, for example, you'll still see the slingshot kind of the markers around the map, like where they are, so that kind of mentally, okay, I can go there once I have this this ability. I can go there to get kind of progress in that direction. And then along the way, just so I'm kind of covering all the bases, there is a skill tree that you kind of go through via meditation, where essentially you pray to a statue. That's what it is. You pray to a statue, and it gives you a skill tree. It's look, I'll just explain. I'll get to opinions in a second. There's a skill tree, and then there's also a place where you can meditate, where it essentially is like a bunch of challenges based on the movement. So it's literally just like courses, that are just to test your time, go for gold,
like
and
side paths, and
yeah,
stuff like that.
Yeah, and like well, it's all it's like it's like literally like an obstacle course. So it's like floating in nothing usually, and it's just kind of blocks placed around, and you're just going for the best times, because if you get the gold, silver or bronze, you get kind of a certain reward for it.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of rewards, the way you kind of, level up your character at the, at that statue and stuff is through these orbs that are just floating around. And every time you pick them up, they make a little sound, like a ping sound that kind of tells you, hey, you picked up an orb. And the more of them you collect, the more you can upgrade your character. And lastly, there's a merchant as well, because as you explore through these, how many times can I say post-apocalypse in this review? As you explore the map and the kind of different variations, there's like 5 different levels or areas in the game, and as you're exploring them, as you get those orbs, you level up your character. I'm gonna derail the conversation before I even get to my thoughts. You'll find these treasures and stuff just laying around, and you can pick those up, and there's this old man that just follows you around, and you go to his lair, and you can sell him the stuff you find and get more stuff that you can use to you get the idea. Now,
yeah.
I did not like this game. There's a lot here. First of all, let's talk about the parkour. Admittedly, it is fun when you really just like, there's like moments, I want to say of a minute long intervals, where I'll occasionally be like, oh wait, that was like almost like really, I almost forgot about everything else, and I really enjoyed like kind of getting into the zone there. But by and large, it just doesn't deliver on a lot of the kind of the general promises. So the controls of the parkour is R2 to jump. By the way, I'm playing on the Xbox, just so I played on the Xbox Series X. So it's R2 to jump. It's I'm gonna try to remember these controls off the top of my head. A, on the face button, A is to place down a marker that essentially you can teleport back to by pressing LB. If you hold LT, later on you get certain abilities that kind of require you to aim, like the slingshot, for example. So you press LT to slow down time, and then you aim your character, and then you press RB to start that interaction. Or you can also press RB just by itself to interact. RB is the interact button in this game. So if you pick up an item, you have to press RB. Look, these controls are really weird. Obviously, you can get used to them, but there's no way to change the controls. This is one of those games where there's not a lot of control, like settings that you could like. There's not like there's brightness and gamma for the video settings. It's one of those games, so it doesn't have a large roster of options that you can kind of tweak to your liking. The way it is out of the box is kind of what you get. Next, I've already said, I've kind of briefly went over the story, and there's a handful of characters in this. The story is like it's very thin. It's not like something that's going to be, at least for me, it wasn't something that was compelling enough to me. Like, I have to see this through to the end. And a big part of that is that the voice acting is just not emotive. There's not a lot of it's all very kind of dryly delivered, and I don't know if this I'm not sure what language this might have originally been in, if it wasn't English initially. There are like some there's at least one item in the skill tree that I found that was not translated. Like, it was not in English, and I got it anyway because the skill tree felt so like I like the health one I get, but like everything else I just could not. I couldn't be bothered with it because I was like, there's nothing here that warrants me to be invested, not in the narrative and not in the kind of the gameplay mechanics. I did obviously upgrade everything, like most of the skill trees, because I kept, I was collecting the orbs. It'd be stupid of me to be like, I'm not gonna do it. You can't make me. But
So is it just like stuff that, you didn't see any purpose in because you were able to achieve what you wanted to with the basic controls, or is it like incremental stat
it's
things
mostly
that don't
incremental
really
stat
make
stuff
sense?
that, like, yeah,
Okay.
I didn't really notice kind of hugely change my gameplay or anything. Um,
Hmm.
the health one, obviously, I think like adds like two little bars that are kind of noticeable there, but yeah, there's that. Now there is also, along with parkour, brief bouts of combat in this game, where, and you'll know combat's coming because you'll see these scattered kind of parts and like rocks or kind of gears, and as you enter the area they'll kind of collect together to make
Hmm.
the bad guy. And each there's two type of bad guys in this game, not including the final boss. The first one are essentially these orbs that fly around, that have like a helmet on. Essentially, I'm very vague description so you kind of get the general idea. Orbs with
Hmm.
helmets on, and you can, if they spot you, they're drones, and if they spot you, they like come to you and then they explode and they do damage. But you do
So like
also
a
have,
kamikaze type enemy.
essentially, but they also have, if you press, if you have a R3, if you click R3 in a direction, it like kind of dashes in that direction, and so you can,
Hmm.
step away from them and avoid the explosion. Or if you go behind them, you can actually press RB, or if you like stealth, if they're not like looking at you, you can press RB and interact with it, and you can steal the orb, and the helmet just kind of falls apart. The other type of enemies is the one I was talking about, where they come together in these, like of these scrap materials, and inside of them they have two glowing parts. The two glowing parts are red initially, and then the enemies will do these kind of repetitive attack animations where they'll flail a little bit, they'll do one swing move, flail a little bit. If you're too far, they'll like jump up into the air and then come down and then like release some spikes. There's a few different variations, but it's all kind of generally the same attacks, and you have to essentially dodge their attacks and wait long enough for the red glowing orb things to turn green, and then you can run up to them and press RB. And because of that, there is no challenge in the combat here. You can
Hmm.
essentially cheese your way through any of the enemies in the game, because one of them you can just, again, like either just not even sneak up. You don't have to like stop running or anything. You just walk up behind them when they're not looking at you and the drones are disarmed. And the
Hmm.
guys that are like gigantic and would be a challenge, yeah, sure. Like I died like maybe 3-4 times in this game, sure, but also actually more than more than that. Actually, I'll get to that. Um, but a few times to them, I should say. But
Hmm.
by and large, like, I just kind of dash around until they tire themselves out, and then as soon as I see the things glowing green, I rush in and I spam click RB until you're still. I think the idea may be in design that you get one, and then as soon as you take one, it like, kind of reactivates and goes like will go back to red. But
Hmm.
if you kind of spam click fast enough, you get both before it kind of gets back up, and you don't have to worry about it.
Uh-huh.
At least that's that's how I played it. And even the final boss, like the final boss is essentially a very boring repetition. That's a weird sentence. Of the mechanics, it essentially tests the three mechanics in the game that you've learned. So you have to use the double jump on the little air swirls. You have to
Hmm.
slingshot your way back, and then the third ability is actually a decently cool one, just kind of in concept, where you have these squares that you can, similar to how you use the slingshot. Go into slow motion. You can look at these squares, like these red squares, and you can activate it, and it essentially creates a surface for you that you can climb or wall run or that kind of thing on. But you can only do one at a time. So if to kind of go through the whole kind of course, you have to like jump, and then as you jump, switch to the one in front of you, and then land on that one, and then jump, and then kind of you're chaining that kind of stuff together. That is conceptually pretty cool. But those are the only three things that the kind of game introduces, and in the final boss, you just repeat those three times, and then the stupid boss just like plays a game of like, no, you can't get me, you just spawn. It comes going back and forth until you place a mark and then kind of spawn back to it, or just run around fast enough and yank the last item that you need to get off of that boss, and ends the game. So there's that. Also, I looked at my notes. X is to slide in this game, just to cap the controls, just so you guys everyone's got it down. Now there's also going back to kind of general gameplay stuff, because I've touched on combat now. Going back to general gameplay stuff, the parkour, while like I said, there are intervals of time where I can forget about the flat voice acting and the combat, whatever, there are moments of enjoyment, but sometimes the wall running or just the parkour can feel a little locked in or frustrating because if it doesn't work right. So what I mean by that is, you have these parkour abilities, but most of the time it's like kind of linear solutions to the puzzle, like of how to get to certain places. Like there are at least that I found, like very few areas where there's, different kind of, you can experiment and get somewhere where you might not have been able to, or like how, not how you're supposed to. Like certain areas, if you want to jump, I could probably make that jump regularly because this guy, if there's like a 10-foot wall, he can land like, how do I describe this to you guys? So imagine the top of it is foot 1 and the bottom is foot 10, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, down 10. Even if he lands on like foot 7, he'll still somehow monkey his way up to to 1 and then pull himself up. So like the ledge, the helping hand that you get for when you get are near ledges is ridiculous. But at the same time, if you try to make jumps that are not those like kind of predetermined ledges, you'll find like that you can't. Like it just like he just won't do it. And it's clearly blocked off so that you can't get to certain areas until unless you use the path that was created for it. Mm-hmm. Again, just so I'm clear, there is like the worlds, like the 4 levels mainly that you kind of explore, are pretty cool to kind of just look at in terms of just I wonder where this goes. And it is a linear path mostly to get there, but just going off that beaten path and seeing what is there, often just like another object that you can pick up and then sell to. There's also a character that who's like just a floating skeleton who I'm not going to ruin this, but he literally is just like, oh, can you find my body? And so like you're finding bones occasionally and bringing him back his bones, and he tells you stories.
So it kind of sounds like a little bit of like Valley Peaks, like the side stuff is just kind of like go find this thing.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
That'll now populate out in the world.
So it can be fun just doing that, but again, with everything we still have more to say. It just doesn't kind of quite hold up. So I've already said the story, but I will kind of reiterate that the game spends a lot of time, like I think a needless amount of time, really kind of looking at these characters and hearing them talk, just like some character jargon that's like not super like interesting. And the game does not look great for the most part. I think the skyboxes can look really nice, especially on some of the later areas that you kind of unlock, and it can look pretty nice. But by and large, like if you look up anything kind of up close, you're not gonna be like, oh, that's crisp or anything like that. Again, it could be on PC. I haven't played the PC version. I'm only playing the console release on the Xbox Series X.
Is it trying to go for like a more realistic look, or is it like supposed to be like stylized or like lower
It's
quality,
definitely
do you
so.
think?
It's not. Um. Okay. It's not. It's definitely not like as super stylized. The areas are are diverse in terms of like the four levels are look different, but
Mm,
it's not like it's not cel shaded. It doesn't have like a retro pixelated art style. It's not.
gotcha.
It's not like that. It kind of looks. Kind of feels adjacent to like a Prince of Persia in terms of like aesthetic, but it also like looks like a 2008 Prince of Persia game. So like like in terms of the textures aren't high quality. It feels like an older game
Hmm.
while you're kind of playing it. And so like oftentimes I did not I promise you I did not skip a cutscene. I did listen to them, but it was you didn't need this long. And also there's a clip I have on my hard drive because I found this for some reason needlessly funny because I was at a point where I really was like I said at the start of this review, like I was like, oh man, I really don't want to play more of this, but I know, especially because I'm negative about it, I have to make sure that like I have the full game in mind, or as much of the game as I could be, and I did finish the game. I rolled credits, but as much of the game as I could in mind when I'm talking about it. So there's this one scene where you're talking to this turtle, and it's like this turtle, like this rock turtle, is supposed to be like the guardian of this land, and this turtle is essentially walking around just like aimlessly in this kind of this one level. And when you interact with it to talk, it says, "Oh, I'm the guardian of this land,"
I am the last guardian of this city.
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You have to find your own quest or whatever.
There are many things you need to figure out for yourself.
And I'm not going to help you on your quest. It's for you to find. In fact, I'm not going to take a single step until you find your way or whatever.
In fact, I won't move one step from here.
And then the cutscene ends, and immediately the thing resumes its walk cycle, and it starts taking steps, and it's like, oh no, yeah. So that kind of stuff really broke me in terms of just like, oh, like we spent this much time listening to this, and then you couldn't even stick the landing on it.
Right.
Also, like some stuff with like the audio, like again, these timing things don't work out for the game. So like, when you pick up things on the ground, like just like stuff laying around, the main character often will have some quip or something that'll say, and like one of the things he says often is like, guess no one needs this. And then sometimes like you'll literally pull it off of a bad guy in a fight, and he goes, "Guess no one needs this." I was like, yeah. I mean,
Well, that guy did.
yeah, yeah, I guess you could say that. Okay.
Don't mind if I do.
Now there's other. I feel like I'm just going down my list. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm covering everything, and most of these are not going to be pleasant. All right, so I did also fall off the map twice. Just like fell through the like different areas, and then like I fall under. It was all both in this lava area, I will say, both times it happened. Sorry, there was a third that happened in another area, but that one I was able to kind of like finagle my way out around. But the two times in this lava area, I like legit like fell below the map, and I was like running around in the darkness, like looking up at the map. Now, obviously, it's annoying because you die. Like the only way to really continue is you have to like keep running until you fall off the ledge of the of the darkness, and then die to respawn back at the last save point that you have. But the thing that sucks, and also just because for science, the second time I fell off, I actually placed down a mark under the map and then died and respawned yes, I could go back to the map mark under the map. So for science, I did that, just so you guys appreciate that. Now, this, so falling under the map, the thing that's kind of salt on the wound of this whole thing is that, and, there's upgrade stuff in the skill tree that upgrades this, is what I meant to say. And that is that the more orbs you collect without dying, there's like it'll it's like a stat boost where you'll get more orbs. So like instead, like after I'm gonna make these numbers up, but you'll get the general idea. So like if you collect 20 orbs, without dying, then everyone after that counts as double. So then you get 1, you get 2 instead.
Mm-hmm.
So I was on like a super high fucking non-deaths orb collecting streak, and then I fall off the map, and I'm like, okay, I have to restart. Like, there's no way I could go back. And so I was like, it kind of resets me, and I have to go through that process again. And you have to imagine my frustration when that happens a second time on that same level.
Right.
So yeah, and
especially like it especially sucks when it's not like directly in your control, like something like that where you're like phasing through geometry or whatever and just falling out of bounds. It's like
yeah,
that stinks.
And you can get stuck on walls or ledges too occasionally, and sometimes you can get out of them, like I said, and sometimes you can't. And again, those leads to deaths that leave you kind of like leads to deaths that aren't your fault, is what I would say.
Which is kind of something that I like. That sounds like a pretty significant problem if it's a kind of putting itself forward as like a parkour based, like very movement focused kind of game. If that stuff isn't like super solid, then that's obviously gonna be a big issue.
So all said and done, Downward was not my favorite game of the year. It has, I think, too many shortcomings that kind of outweigh the moments of kind of the flow state, where I was like, oh, I'm feeling it. I see where this what the potential here. And I think with refinement, with more time in the proverbial kitchen, I think it could have been there, but this is Downward enhanced is what we just got here. And so it feels a little weird calling it enhanced with that kind of with all those problems I said. If it did the thing that it said it would, which is just parkour, just extremely well, I would still recommend it. But at the end of the day, like what it comes down to is, if you're really, really hankering for a game that's like Mirror's Edge but not as good, then I would recommend playing Mirror's Edge Catalyst. But if you have also played that and still want something kind of movement-based, I would recommend Brink, the game from Bethesda that most people forgot about. Now, if you've played all of those games and you're like, I just want to zone out, I want to play something, I don't care about story, I'm fine with the jank, I'm not going to get invested, all of that, then yes, you can play Downward, and I'm sure there's going to be people who do enjoy this, from a particular niche. But by and large, I've said everything I've had to say about Downward Enhanced Edition. But you, if you have interest in the game, can pick up the game for yourself because it is out now on consoles and PC. It originally launched, by the way, in 2017 in July. So it has spent quite a bit of time, just out on PC, and now it's on, to specify, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series XS, and Nintendo Switch. And I got to be honest, I would imagine that you're going to get a similar experience on the PS5 and the Nintendo Switch and the Xbox Series XS here. So, if you have interest, play it on the console of your choice.